Good afternoon, early attendees. If you're
Hi.
here, can you post in the chat whether you can hear me, please?
Yes, can.
Oh, okay. Well, that's answered one of my questions, because you should have all been muted coming in. And that clearly hasn't happened. I wonder whether that's because
You arrive on mute, but you can unmute yourself.
Oh, can you? Okay. Well, as more people arrive, I'll need to crave your indulgence and ask you, if you're an attendee, to mute yourself, because depending on how many people arrive, we could have more than 100 people on this call, which will make it somewhat difficult for us to run the event if everyone is unmuted. So if when you arrive, you could mute yourself again, that would be much appreciated. And I'll just put a note to that effect in the chat. Whilst we're waiting for the others to join us, can I point out that you do have the chat box to be able to type messages to everyone. So if you have any questions during the course of this meeting, please feel free to post them there. If you see somebody that you recognize as you scroll across, apparently I'm reliably informed that as more people join, you'll see more and more pictures appearing on your screen, up to a maximum of 47, I'm told. To see more than 47, if you scroll left and right, then you'll see more pictures. So you can say that. Yes, Megan, you can ask a question as you wait for people to start. Do you want to post it in the chat so everybody can see it?
Sure. I can just say it as I'll post it in the chat too, but I'll also say it. I saw the link you sent around with the offers for coaching, and I was really interested in it. And like a lot of companies, my own does offer an education bonus and some days off so you can pursue it. But I'm in a position where with the company that I'm in and the role that I'm in, it requires a lot of autonomy, and I have to come up with a lot of the strategies myself for the partner success and things that we do. And I'm a little bit stymied about how I would even go about finding someone to talk to about that, like what kind of coaching is available, because it's not necessarily personal coaching or career coaching because I have the job that I want. It's more how to kind of tap into the creativity that I would need for it. You know, I feel like I can do it with this kind of stuff. It's just more ideas and someone to bounce ideas off. So I'm just wondering, does anyone have any thoughts around that, or have you done that kind of coaching before?
Okay. Can I ask any answers to that question before you all start opening up your mute boxes and shouting the answers at me? If you could post them in the chat, that would be really, really helpful. But just since Megan's asked the question, one of the reasons we set up the group in the first place, Megan, was for the members themselves to help support other members. And that might be one-to-one, with one-to-one coaching or mentoring, or it could be in groups where a group of members get together and discuss common problems or issues or whatever. So we'll explore some of those during the course of this presentation. But if you still have questions, then by all means either send me an email or post it in the chat. I should mention before we go any further, this session is being recorded, so that not only do we have recording of the dialogue and the exchange of views, but we also have a recording of the chat, so that all your comments in the chat will be recorded. So if you have any requests, or you have any desire to contact any of the speakers, or you have any desire to take up any of the speakers, any of the offers they may or may not make, again, post it in the chat. That'd be great. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, Mike. This is Paola Principe from France.
Hello, Paola. Could you go on mute, please, Paola, because we've got quite a few people coming in. We have over 200 registrations. So if everybody said hello and my name is Mike and I'm from Warwick in England, that would probably take us to 30 minutes into the meeting. So if you could just mute yourself as you come in, that would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you. We are, in some respects, a victim of our own success with this. But I'm seeing quite a lot of comments in the chat, so that's great. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. As I say, the chat will be recorded so that all those comments we can share afterwards. And I'll be telling you, I say I'll be telling you later. Why don't I just tell you now? One of the things that we as an organizing committee have organized is a magazine to send out to you. And it's a digital magazine. So what the magazine will do is it will explain the concept of women in alliances, what we're trying to achieve. It will give a provocative article, hopefully, that will get you thinking about your role as alliance or partnership managers. And then it will have an article from each of the three speakers. And what we will do is post a recording of this video in that magazine so that you can review some of the thoughts, but also for those people that couldn't attend, they'll be able to get the magazine as well and see what we talked about. And that as well gives me the opportunity of mentioning the Women in Alliances LinkedIn group. If you haven't already found it, please do go onto LinkedIn, search for Women in Alliances, plural, and you should see coming up in the search box a group called, surprise, surprise, Women in Alliances. It's a free group, obviously. You can apply to join. I will take all of 3 nanoseconds to decide whether I should allow you to join or not, and then immediately hit the accept button. So you'll all get in there. A few things that I need to talk about before we get started. So the first one is the chat box. Obviously, with so many people joined, it's impossible to open up all the microphones. So as a convention for the speakers, as a convention for sanity, could you please remain on mute? Because when I unmute each of the individual speakers, the setting is set to speaker, which means that the speaker's face will become much bigger on the screen. You'll see the speaker clearly, etc., etc., etc. But please do use the chat box and feel free to answer each other's questions in there. If you see a question, you think you know the answer, you want to build on that as a conversation, please do. We deliberately decided to run this event as a meeting rather than a webinar, because we don't want to preach at you. We want to engage you in the conversation and engage you in the dialogue. And hopefully we can do that through the chat box and through the questions afterwards. The running order will be, first of all, we'll have Jodie Swain talking about the gamification app that she's developed called Hire and Fire Your Kids. And that will be for around about 20 minutes. There'll be time for a couple of quick questions afterwards, but then we'd like to get on straight away to the second speaker, who's Nicole Normand, who will be speaking about building your own brand, how you build a brand for yourself. And then finally, she'll have 20 minutes as well. Finally, we'll have Katarina Scoburn, who will be talking about how to be your best remote self. How do you present the best view of yourself that you possibly can? So we'll have around about 1 hour of speakers, a few questions at the end of each speaker, but then at the end of the hour, we'll have another 30 minutes of general question and answers. And hopefully, depending on how many people are still on the call, we may be able to open up some more microphones and invite some people to tell us what their particular interest is in women in alliances or share some thoughts with us there. So I've mentioned the magazine. Oh, the conference. I want to put the organizing committee under some self-imposed pressure in the nicest possible way, I assure you. We've talked about what we'd like to do for this group. And our first meeting was in, I think, October last year. We had 15 attendees. Our second meeting, we had more like in December, early December, we had more like, November, 30 or 40. Our third meeting was in December and we had 60, 65. And at the moment, as I say, we've got 233 registrations for this event. So it's likely we're going to have more than 150 attendees. With that kind of growth, we are looking actively at putting together a mini conference, or indeed a conference, a Women in Alliances conference, where we'll invite women who have something to contribute on either the personal or the professional level to help you develop your personal or professional career, because that is the sole focus and purpose of this group. So if you know of any good speakers, or if you'd like to speak, please feel free to get in touch with me. So I've mentioned the LinkedIn group, I've mentioned the chat, I've mentioned the speakers, I've mentioned that we're recording the session. I think I've mentioned just about everything I need to mention. So let me introduce our first speaker, who is Jodie Swain. I now have to find Jodie on the list. Oh, there she is. Hello, Jodie. And she's off mute as well. Excellent. So Jodie is the founder of Hire and Fire, a gamification app which she developed specifically to deal with one of the key elements that women in particular seem to have some personal problems with, which is the balance of being a professional, but also having children at home. And how do you deal with that? She lives in Whitby in Canada, and she has 5 children. So she has a lot of expertise. So without any further ado, Jodie, would you like to take it from there?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So yeah, the Hire and Fire Your Kids app was built essentially to help you raise your kids by managing the behaviors and chores in your home. And we do so through a system of recognition, reward, and consequence. So I'd like to start by sharing a Statistics Canada report from last year that revealed 3 out of 4 parents experience concerns and worries about balance regarding childcare, kids schooling, and their own professional work, regardless of their children's age. And more than half of those parents also reported greater difficulty managing their child's emotions as well as their own emotions. So what are we to do? Before I answer that question, I do want to take a little bit more time to let you know who I am, how Hire and Fire Your Kids came to be, how it works, what people are saying, and potentially how it can maybe help you gain a little work-life balance this year. So I worked in retail for over 20 years. Most recently was the director of stores for a luxury Canadian retailer. And then I found myself at home on mat leave with my new baby and my new blended family. So my husband has 3 boys. I had a daughter, and then we had baby Ellen. So we now had a his, hers, and ours. And it was probably month 2 where I legit wanted to go back to work. The kids were just driving me crazy. And I normally worked a lot of nights and weekends. And the boys we only had every other weekend. But being home for the year, I just felt like I was with them all the time. I could see everything they were doing and weren't doing. Dishes left everywhere, cupboard doors left open, toilets not flush, bickering, fighting, laundry beside their laundry hamper, you name it. Anyway, so as a stepmom, I found it really hard to communicate with the boys. So I would either turn a blind eye, I would complain to my husband, I would just fix it myself and sort of hold in the resentment. And then I thought, you know what? I'm not going back to work. I love these kids and really hadn't communicated our expectation as this new blended family. And it really wasn't fair to them. So I felt I had a responsibility to share our house rules, what we wanted for our kids in this world, and why. So my husband and I literally sat down and we went through everything that we did around the house. So everything from dishes, grass cutting, cooking meals, laundry, bills, house maintenance, you name it. We listed everything. And then we put a reward amount beside the ones that we were prepared to reward our kids for if they were to apply. And we didn't put rewards beside everything because some we expected. And so that's where the expectations came in. So then we went over to expectations and listed everything in regards to hygiene, manners, family values, chores, behaviors. And, we listed everything like, if we had the perfect kid, what would they be doing? And, obviously there's no such thing, but it was a really fun exercise for both of us to be on the same page in regards to the jobs and expectations in this home. And then we called a family meeting and we sat them all down. But before the meeting started, I actually went around that whole week and I took pictures of everything that was driving me crazy. And so the kids sat down one Sunday afternoon and I hit play and I could see them watching this going, oh geez, something's coming. And yeah, the presentation finished and I turned to the kids and I said, okay, so who's been making all these messes? And they said, we did. And I said, who's been cleaning up all these messes? And they said, you have. And then I said, do you think that's fair? And they all said no, which was great. And I thanked them for that and said, you know what? We are a family, we are a team, you're getting older and you're more than capable to be contributing to the home. And I need your help. I need your help. And I want to make sure that when you get out on your own, you can take care of yourself. You do know how to do your own laundry and cook your own meals, and you can take care of you. Anyway, so we rolled out this game and I called it Hire and Fire Your Kids, which I based off my work experience where I managed teams of people and my role was really to motivate, inspire, and lead my teams to deliver on results. And it's funny, if you were actually to Google traits of what makes a good leader, you can quickly see the similarities to that of a good parent or a good mom. And so being home for the year on mat leave, I thought, well, what if I was getting paid to sort of manage my home? And what if I was being held accountable to raise my kids? Would I do it differently? And I probably would manage the home the same way I managed my team in the workplace. And so we got our kids' input in regards to those jobs and expectations, and we changed some of them around. We removed some, added some, and really customized them to suit our family. But it really made an impact when we got our kids' input because it really helped get their buy-in when we started to play Hire and Fire. And so then from there, we actually cut our kids off. So we shared that from now on, you're going to earn your wants playing Hire and Fire Kids, and we will 100% take care of your needs. But in the past, if we went, to the zoo, for example, and our kids wanted a souvenir, we would buy it for them. If we went to the local store and they wanted a treat, we would buy it for them, but no more. We really wanted to teach the kids the difference between needs and wants and what's actually important to them when it's their hard-earned money. And so that's kind of where it came to be. So the hired side is, the jobs that the kids could apply for and earn reward. And then the fired side were our family expectations. So if an expectation was you make your bed every day and the kids didn't make their bed, I simply had to go in, take a picture of that unmade bed, and they'd get this, warning X. And the kids' goal was to finish their pay period without getting fired. And in our house, it was 4 X's. So you didn't make your bed, X. You yelled at your brother, X. You left your dirty socks on the floor, X. Didn't flush the toilet, X, you're fired. And fired meant that they lost out on their incentive bonus. As well, it actually activated a consequence that we had set together at our last team meeting. And most of the time, the kids were the ones coming up with these consequences, which in some cases was harsher than we sort of had in our minds. So it became like gameplay that we had within the home, and the kids were totally on board, and we rolled it out, and it was an absolute game changer. And we played for a good 9 months, and it really did nurture our family bond and brought us closer together as this new blended family. And then I went back to work and we actually stopped playing and life went on. And it wasn't until a series of loss where Hire and Fire sort of came back into my life. I lost my job the summer of 2017. My mom died November 2016, and our son had passed away May of 2012. So here was this loss after loss after loss, but my job sort of put me over the edge where I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here on this earth? And here was this role that I was actually really good at, and I just didn't understand it. It was a big slap in the face, and I didn't know what to do next. And the role was kind of my identity, and I just kept hearing my mom's voice in my head as she had said something to me in the hospital along the lines of, Jody, you have so much more to give this world. Why are you giving so much of you to this company? And you know what? She was absolutely right. I spent a lot of time there, giving more time and attention to my job sometimes than my own family, I'm ashamed to admit. So that was kind of ringing in my ear when this happened. And this is going to sound really weird, but I kept seeing Hire and Fire, like flashing lights and almost like I say, like a beacon calling me. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go back down. I looked at these binders that I'd put together when I rolled it with my family. And I was like, I wonder if this would work for other families. And so I decided to reach out to my neighbors. And I was a bit of an introvert, didn't really, hang out with my neighbors. I was more like a, hey, how's it going kind of person. But I made up these flyers and I went on my street and I put them on all the doors and waited to hear back. Anyway, so 5 of these ladies said they would come and learn more about Hire and Fire Your Kids. And I just remember, thinking when they were coming over that night, like, oh, why did I do this? They're all going to say, no, this is a terrible idea. I'm so embarrassed. And all of the ladies after my pitch said, yes, they were looking for something like this for their home, and they would absolutely try Hire and Fire Kids and let me know how it went. So I had them all back 2 weeks later, and lo and behold, they were like, oh my gosh, Jody, this is a game changer. And they couldn't get over the results in such a short period of time. They all had similar feedback that I had with my own family when we rolled it out. And these were families that had boys, girls, singletons, all different ages, but all with the same results. So I decided to take my severance that I'd received and put it into building an app to be able to help more families around the globe. So we'd been playing with this paper version that was literally on our fridge with the Hired and Fired. And, these were all the things that I had issues with in my home that I would have wanted to grab an app during that time, but there really wasn't anything available. Everything was very junior or chore based. And I had come up with this for managing, behaviors and expectations in a home and being able to do so in a non-confrontational way. So the gamified, behavior fired side was primarily for me as a stepmom. And then I came up with the chores hired side so that the kids could have, a little more fun versus just, what's in it for me. So yeah, we decided to build the app. I created the Hire and Fire Inc. Technology startup company in the fall of 2018. And then Dragon's Den came out of nowhere, actually. So for those of you that aren't familiar, it's like Shark Tank in the US. And I was reached out to through LinkedIn, actually, by one of the producers. And we didn't even have a product at this time. It was just an idea. But I pitched to the producers and they liked it. And we went and pitched live to the physical dragons. And then we ended up actually making it to an air date. So that just pushed me way outside my introverted comfort zone. And I sort of ended up falling back into my corporate ways where I just got sucked in and the business became my life. And at that time when Dragon's Den hit, it was just myself running the business. And I had my sister who was helping me part-time. So when our episode aired, we'd been in stores maybe 2 months. And I just remember all the customer service that was coming through because it was a game, it was unique, there was nothing out there like this, and people did not know how to play. And they didn't go to the website where I created all these facts and I had all these tutorials. No, they were coming to me going, how do I do this? How do I fix this? Why isn't this working? And I was just inundated with these emails coming through about the gameplay. And the background I had in luxury retail, where, customer service is of the utmost importance, I just didn't want to lose any of these customers, even for $8.49. And so I just stayed up. I just stayed up and got back to these people in a timely manner. And yeah, our episode aired October 24th, 2019. And I was getting maybe 2 to 3 hours of sleep every night from then till the end of October or end of November. Until, that is, my husband and eldest daughter sat me down and had what I call a full intervention. And they basically said, where's my wife? Where's my mom? you've built this app to help families, bring them closer together, yet here you are pulling this family apart. So that was hard. That was really hard for me. And now I say I'm a bit of a recovering workaholic, but here I was trying to scale this business, capitalize on my 15 minutes of fame. Yet what's the most important thing in my life? My family, obviously. And so I literally took my foot off the gas. I canceled different podcasts and shows that we had booked, and I didn't want to do it, but I knew in my heart of hearts that it was something I had to do because I was just getting sucked in. And so Christmas came, January came, and I actually went and took a last minute vacation with my sister that helped me launch the app. And then I came back from a holiday, recharged and ready to give Hire and Fire another go, but I really didn't touch it much at all during that time. I have a hard time balancing the, full steam ahead versus crawling in a corner under my covers. And so the balance was hard and I just couldn't figure it out. So yeah, full throttle or hard stop. And so coming back from vacation into, the new year, 2020, I kind of started to feel like I was getting my groove back. And, February, we were asked to join this tech accelerator to help us scale. And then what happened in the world? COVID happened. And COVID days were hard for me, hard for the world, really, and especially hard for moms trying to manage, home, kids, homeschool, lockdowns, relationships, self-care, and then throw a job on top of that. So at that time, the app was a paid download when COVID hit. And I think like most people, I just wondered, what can I do? How can I help? And I saw so many posts on Facebook and Instagram from people who were struggling, trying to manage some sort of work-life balance during this new norm. And then here we were with this household management system that could potentially help. So my thought was, let's just make it for free. Here are all these families stuck together, driving each other crazy. And I have this little tool that I created to bring some sanity and structure back to the home where, structure had essentially gone out the window. And so, yeah, we moved the app to a free download and we're seeing our user base grow at a steady organic pace. And, we've released new versions out and, we're far from perfect. And that's sort of been hard to swallow for me. But, I've taken some advice from Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg where, done is better than perfect. So that's kind of how the app came to be. And since sharing it for free, we've been working with parents and kids to help manage the behaviors and chores at home and, tweak the app as we grow. And the feedback we've received from families has been the absolute best part. We hear things like, oh, I just feel like I've got control back, or, oh, I can breathe again, or mom's not yelling so much anymore. And so our goal this year is to introduce the Kids Cash card program and continue to grow our user base with parents and kids to make, Hire and Fire something pretty special that can help, more families around the globe. So if you are interested in, want to join us, test, make your life a little easier, you basically just have to download the app. It's available in the App Store and Google Play. We also have a free web app that you can use on any computer or laptop device. Customize your jobs and expectations to suit your own family. And then customize your game rules. So you can play the game in points or in dollars. So if you're a point family, your kids would just accumulate and they could cash out for experiences of your choice, like a date with mom at the park, that sort of thing. You can pay your kids weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, and then you would set your reward bonus amounts. What else would you need to know? I guess you can also add on to your game rules. So in our house, we ask that our kids volunteer for one job a week. So if they don't do it, they would get an X. We ask that they complete a minimum of 2 jobs a week. If they don't do it, they would get an X. So the X has kind of become the superhero of the game. Even when you first roll it out, you don't even really have to, use the app. You can just use your words. So if the kids came home from school and, plop their backpacks on the ground, you just have to walk by and go, oh, someone's going to get an X. And legit, they will run and put those bags away, I swear. And, baby Ellen, we started playing with her when she was almost 4. And it really helped with sort of nighttime routine. So I remember her one night going, I don't want to brush my teeth. I brushed my teeth this morning. And I was like, okay, so you can either brush your teeth or you get an X, your choice. And she'd grab her toothbrush and start brushing her teeth. So, HFK is an app. It's unique, and it really encourages the kids to be taking the initiative. So before you start playing, you need to take some time. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to understand, the rules. I have a ton of videos out there to, have you really understand and learn more. And then once you're all set up, it's time to call your team meeting and go through the why you want to play with your family and get their feedback so that you ensure you have their buy-in when it comes to jobs and expectations. And I think I'm still surprised today at the amount of kids that like this game and wanted to play this game. I thought it'd be like pulling teeth, but even during testing, it was the kids that were bugging their parents, like, when's the app coming? When are we starting to play? And they just love it. And the reasons they say is because it's their choice. It's not mom telling me what to do. It's, the app. So we kind of become the buffer between parent and child. And so the last thing I'll share before I wrap up is that in our home, we actually let our kids fire us too. So we need to be leading by example. So if I don't make my bed, I know for sure the kids are coming in and giving me an X. So it holds me just as accountable as it holds the kids. And I have been fired a few times, more for my potty mouth. But yeah, as parents and kids, working together in the home, it really is a fun experience. And if we get fired, our kids have said that we have to take them to Dairy Queen for a treat, which is ice cream. But yeah, it's been working great. We have some amazing testimonials that you can find on our website. We've recently been added as a resource by Autism Speaks Canada and the Boys and Girls Club. We were at the National Women's Show with a ton of interest from teachers saying, you know what, this could actually work really well in a classroom setting. So today, we're just exploring. HFK literally started as something that was a fix for my family on the year I was home 24/7 living with my kids. And now I just feel like everyone's sort of in the same boat that I was. So today we try and manage living life together in our homes during a pandemic. So hopefully this little tool I created is something you can roll out with your families. It takes a little bit of legwork up front, but it should not take up a lot of your time. I built it so the parents would not be burdened by the app. You shouldn't have to touch it a lot. It was really built to encourage your kids to be taking the initiative, for them to step it up, contribute to the family, and do so in a fun way that actually makes them want to play and help. So your job really is recognize your kids, reward them on payday, and provide any warning X's or consequences when perhaps your kids get fired. And so to wrap up, I'm sure you've heard the airplane safety tip to put your oxygen mask on first before helping your child. Well, the same applies with emotional regulation. I had to slow down. I had to give myself time to work out, eat better, sleep more, and nurture my relationships. I have to trust that scaling HFK will come in time and that I don't have to work the insane startup hours, pushing my family to second place and myself to dead last. I think it was Ariana Huffington that once said more startups would probably succeed if the founders were able to practice self-care from the start. Burnout is real and not necessary to achieve success. And as parents, we have to prioritize managing our own stress, especially during these uncertain days. We need to practice self-care like exercise, sleep, hygiene, relaxation. Easier said than done, I know, but honestly, if we can do this, it really helps us respond calmly to our loved ones and regulate our own emotions. And playing hire and fire your kids can help you gain a little bit of your me time back so you can take on your home, your job, your spouse, allowing you to feel like you've gained a little bit of control back. So it's important to lead by example in a home environment too. Your kids can see and learn that they too can contribute, be more independent, responsible, and add, some value to the home by helping you. And you know what? They can also learn to cope and manage stress by watching you. There is no magic wand to manage work-life balance, but I do know that if you can look after you first, the rest tends to fall into place. Hire and fire kids is a tool to help you get there, but you have to take the time to care for yourself. It's not selfish, it's smart and absolutely necessary to manage all the balls we're juggling these unusual days.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jodie. That was absolutely fantastic. I was going to ask you some questions,
Sure.
the questions that had come on the chat, but you've answered quite a lot of them. There was a question about is there a version that can be provided for schools? And I think you referred to that. You said you were thinking about that. There was a question about how do we get the app? And I think you clearly explained that. And again, it's in the chat history if people want to look at it. One question was, can we, I presume that means in different parts of the world, see the Dragon's Den episode? Is this some kind of a YouTube video showing it?
No, it's only available in Canada right now, but if you reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn or put it in the chat. I actually did a screen record of it, so I can send you the video that way. It's illegal, but
that'd be great.
but
Thank
it can be done, yeah.
We've also had some interesting suggestions for you. I can only call them that.
Okay.
The first one is, do you do a canine version? I have no idea.
For dogs, hire and fire your dog.
I don't know
I
how
like that
dogs
one.
would manage this. I got no idea.
I got a dog during this pandemic, so yeah, that might be coming fall 2021.
The other one that I can relate to is, does this version apply particularly to husbands? I don't think we need to.
It does. No. My husband and I are on there as kid mom and kid dad, and he sometimes gets fired more than the kids does.
Just as a slightly more serious question before we finish, how old were your children when you started the app with them?
Oh my gosh.
What age range are we talking?
Yeah, so we had a 6-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 14-year-old when we started. Yeah.
And it worked equally well with each of those age ranges?
It did. And I'm actually surprised now. And, the name is definitely controversial, but we wanted that to get people's attention as a small startup. But the amount of teenagers that are playing and the parents are loving it, because it's the day and age, they are on their devices, and especially with this pandemic. So it's been working really well with those that are 14 plus. And the original 7 to 12 is our target. But as we continue to get out there, it just continues to grow. And yeah, even roommates are using it in a home environment. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jodie. That was fantastic. So we now have our second speaker, who is Nicole. So Nicole, if you
Hi, Mike. Can you hear me?
I can. I was just about to ask you to take yourself off mute, but you've clearly done that.
Yeah.
So Nicole is an executive career success coach. She's based in Toronto, or as my daughter, who currently lives in Toronto, calls it, Toronto. So I have to call it that. She's been in the area of corporate development, and in particular executive coaching, for 25 years. And she's going to talk about 3 key things. I won't tell you what they are. I'll let her explain what those three key things are. So Nicole, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Excellent. Well, first and foremost, what a group. I'm super honored to be joining all of you this morning and sharing this insight. And I those who know me on the call will know I'm extremely passionate about this. So just a little bit about me before we get started is I've spent 25 years in corporate, in management, executive roles, sales, marketing, client services, new technology transformation. And the one thing I realized is I was spending more and more time coaching, mentoring others, and realized very quickly that this was my passion. So I opted to make a big transition and follow my passion and my purpose to become an executive coach. And today I work with clients to help them really kind of build some self-awareness, to become the best version of themselves, to gain that confidence, to take command or to take control of their career and activate a brand. So now, when I first started, I did not know what a personal brand was. But what I can tell you is activating or stepping into your power and really understanding what a personal brand is a real game changer. It really gives so much greater meaning to not only your personal life, but your work. And I think today, the old thinking of, work and life is separate, that just doesn't exist anymore. So couple of things on my goal today is to share as much value with you. 3 things I'm going to share with you. One is, why does a personal brand matter so much now, so more than ever? What are the benefits? And I'm going to actually share the building blocks too, because everyone asks, how do you do this? So before we get started though, I'm going to just pause here for a moment. And I'd like to launch a quick poll, if I may, and that'll help me, help you better understand where everybody is at, and also help me better understand where you may be at. So I'm going to ask you here, which statement best describes your top interest? And please select one option only. So you should have on your screens a quick poll, so if everyone.
Yeah, the votes are coming through.
Awesome, Mike.
It reminds me of the Eurovision Song Contest, if anybody knows that. The votes from Switzerland are coming through. The votes from Paris are coming through. The votes from Toronto are up to 38, 39, 40 of 78. So there's people lagging behind. It's looking an interesting poll at the moment because they're spread across quite a lot of areas.
Norton's job might be threatened soon, Mike.
Sorry, Stephanie?
Graham Norton's job might be threatened soon. You're doing a very good job at this.
I wouldn't worry about that too much. Why don't we give it yeah, I think you can see from the screen, if you can see the poll, it's been running for about a minute. Just give it a few more seconds to make sure that everybody who wanted to contribute has actually contributed. We've had a large number. And then when I end the poll, if the technology works as well as it should, then Nicole and hopefully the rest of you will see the results of the poll. Yeah, we've got a few more gone through. I think that's about it. So let's end the poll.
And publish.
And publish. Share results. How about that?
Okay, look at this. Interesting. So 27% find my voice and communicate with clarity and impact, as well as learn how to differentiate myself and be recognized for new opportunities. Wow, amazing. 24% greater self-belief and confidence. 13% get unstuck, and then, how to identify my personal brand. Well, the great news is I'm hoping, and I know what I'm going to be sharing today will help you in those areas. So thank you for sharing this, Mike. So let me begin first and foremost by sharing, why does a personal brand matter now more than ever? There are some new realities that are really impacting why this matters. There are some new trends that I'd like to share with you. So first and foremost, 82% of careers are found through referrals, connections, endorsements, networking. Therefore, it's really important to have a voice, as some of you have identified, have a voice and be known. Have that influence, have that presence. Number two is you'll find some of the latest trends. Organizations are flattening that whole hierarchical structure. So you're going to find that's flattening, which means, being, the days of moving up towards an organization, moving through the ranks of an organization might be changing. Also, individuals are looking to change their jobs or career every 2 to 4 years. That creates a lot of movement. There's also the latest trend, another trend is the workplace is becoming a freelance centric. That's creating contract work, consultants. So how are you, to hear about these opportunities? That creates a lot of movement. Not to mention that we are very much now more so than ever in a digital world. And so how does that, what does that look like? How are you keeping connected? We're certainly not networking, walking the hallways and meeting people as readily as we used to, not having these water fountain chats, I guess you could say, or lunchtime opportunities to connect with others. So, this is really important, so more so than ever. So, also, the marketplace is crowded, right? All these changes is creating a lot of competition. So how are you differentiating yourself? How are you getting known? These don't be left behind. And that requires for one to really take control and command of their career. So let me shift a little bit and share with you some of the benefits. And because I want to spend the most of the time on the building blocks, which is where the area most people want to learn, and how do you get there? So first and foremost, spending time on your personal brand means it infuses a introspective exploration, I guess you could call, right? It really creates self-awareness. It allows you to put some self-reflection and in thinking about, well, who am I? What is it that I want? What do I want to be known for? What's important to me? What brings more meaning to me in my life? What does my career mean? Where do I see myself? So it helps to bring those questions, and they're big questions at time, because we can get stuck there. It brings them to the forefront. As a result of doing this self-reflection, it also helps to build your self-belief in yourself, because you're going to learn more about yourself, and I'll dig into that in a minute. It helps build confidence. It will help you gain the influence and the presence that you need to create the impact that you want, that you're looking to achieve. So it really is extremely, extremely powerful. Probably the one thing that the massive benefits to all of a personal brand, and which funny enough came up high in the poll, is the ability to clearly identify and articulate your unique value. If you cannot articulate what makes you unique, and every single one of us has something special, if you're not able to tap into that, then how can others identify, or how can others know what it is that you're looking for? How can others find you for those opportunities? How can you start attracting or creating those opportunities for yourself if you're not able to articulate? So really important and massive benefits to defining, identifying, and I guess defining, developing, and managing your brand. I would also say it not only keeps you relevant, because managing your brand means you're going to be constantly evolving, and a brand constantly evolves as you learn and grow. But it also, increases your net worth. So what do I mean by that? Having worked with, all kinds of different levels of management, whether it's managers, directors, VPs, C-suite, general managers, what I can tell you is once you really step into your brilliance and your power and your unique value, you will gain the confidence to take your career where you want to take it, which means you increase your net worth. You're increasing your brand equity. Most, unfortunately, especially women, are not getting paid what they are deserved. And so creating a brand brings this to the forefront. So I'm going to, move quickly here, because I want to move to the piece, and I want to perhaps leave a bit of time for some questions. I want to move to, okay, well, that sounds great, Nicole. It sounds like that you keep talking about, all the trends that are taking place, that there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of benefits to creating your brand. How do you do it? I can tell you it's not an easy process. However, there is a process. There's in working with clients, there are building blocks. There are some people that want to fast track and jump over some of the building blocks. What I can tell you is it is imperative to follow the building blocks. So let me share what those are. First and foremost, it really starts by defining kind of what are your needs. What is it that you're looking to achieve? What do you want, and what do you expect for yourself? So for example, are you feeling kind of lost and you want clarity of what's next for you? Or maybe you're looking to take your career to the next level and you're not quite sure, what that looks like, and how do you get noticed? How do you get selected for those opportunities? Or maybe you've just found a new career and starting within a new organization, and you want, this is the impactful time for you. How do you navigate and ensure that your brand is on point? Do you know what your brand looks like? Or perhaps you're looking for new opportunities. So really the first step is defining your needs. Number 2 is taking a deep dive. Take a deep dive into your strengths, your skills, your talents, tap into your passions. Understand what your values, what do you stand for? You know, if you haven't done some of this work, this is critical. This is the building block that needs to take place. Getting clear on your unique value will help to be able to help you to articulate what you're looking for, articulate what makes you different. And that helps you be heard and seen. Then this is the piece that most people get stuck on. And this is where it's digging into the inner game. Step number 3, that inner game. What do I mean by that? This is where we dig into. So you're doing great. You've identified where you want to go. Now you know what's unique, what your strengths are, what's your unique value prop. But guess what? You have an inner game that's going on. That self-talk that's keeping you back. Some blind spots, some limited beliefs, some biases, and I'm sure we all have them. You know, it's that the monkey brain or the gremlins that keep crawling, that keep showing up, that hold us back from really stepping into our brilliance. And so unless you do work in this area to really, you know, work through those fears, no matter how much work you do on your brand, this will hold you back. So digging into the inner game is hard work, but it is also releasing work. It helps you take it to the next level. Next, it's about developing step number 4 is about developing your unique, I guess, your value proposition statement. And as minute as you think that is, being able to clearly articulate your value is important. If you're struggling and it clearly in the poll, it showed that many of you are looking to expand and wanting to communicate with impact. This is important. It starts with understanding who you are and being able to communicate this. So learn how to connect authentically, not only with who you are, with your desired outcome, think future forward. These are all elements of being able to connect your unique value proposition. And finally, it is about creating a strategic plan. So, you know, learning to communicate, to promote and create the impact that you want, you have to have a plan. So if you don't have a plan, you're not going to take actions. If you don't take actions, you're not going to get the results. Therefore, it requires some hard work. It is not easy, but what I can tell you is if you apply yourself and take time to really define your personal brand and manage it, you can really take your career to the next level. I'm going to share one example with you. There's many that come to mind, but I've worked just recently with someone, a VP in IT in a financial sector. And this woman is brilliant, brings a lot of knowledge, a lot of talent. Unfortunately, she was doing a lot of the hard work and not being recognized for her efforts and never being invited to the table for the opportunities. She was being passed over and over for all of these opportunities. She struggled with 2 things. One is, you know, first of all, finding her voice, how to communicate her value. And 2, dealing with the inner game, because she kept felt that, you know, why me? Why would they choose? And so she couldn't get the strength to lean forward and to create the impact that she wanted. Having worked with her for the last year, she has just recently been appointed. She's left the role in the financial sector, an organization that she worked for about 15 years, and has now successfully the CIO of an organization completely out of the industry, and really owning her power and essence, I guess you could say. She's now working on her leadership capabilities and competencies, but this is just a small example. It really is the power of a personal brand is immense. So I'm going to pause there because I know I'm probably coming to time. Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating in both of the presentations that we've had so far that we're getting a stream of questions on the chat, and it's almost simultaneously, as the question comes through, the speaker's actually answering that question in the talk. It's really, really quite intriguing. So, I mean, I can share with Nicole some of the questions that came through, but I think she's answered quite a number of them. So one question was about low confidence. You know, I'm an individual with low confidence. Where do I start? It's a kind of catch-22. I'm lacking in confidence, so I don't have the confidence to start. But if I don't start, I'm never going to lose my low confidence. So you've got that going on. Why do women struggle with recognition? There was a deeper element there around, in a particular scenario, there were colleagues who were better at putting themselves forward. It wasn't expressed in the question, but my suspicion is that some of those colleagues may have been male. You know, they're putting themselves forward, they're happy about self-promotion, whereas this particular individual wasn't. How do I deal with that? And I had to smile because a question came through and I thought, oh, that's a really great phrase. That really sums it up. And the question was a kind of cry from the heart, which was, how do I find my voice? And then almost immediately, as I thought that was a really good phrase, you went and said it in the presentation, Nicole. It's phenomenal. So those are a lot of sort of combinations of things. Do you have any final thoughts on any of those? Low confidence, where do I start? Struggling for recognition, finding the voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, you know, self-belief, so confidence. A lot of people talk about confidence. Confidence is what you show on the outside. It starts with the internal work that you do on your own self-belief. And so to build your self-belief, you need to really, and this is where that deep dive exercise, to really gain clarity on what are your strengths, your talents, your skills, your values, you know, your passions. What is it that you're good at? And what is it that you want to be known for? Listen to that little voice inside you. And if, you know, a quick exercise, if you've never done it, reach out to 10 people and ask them, you know, what are your top strengths? What are your skills? What is it? And find out if there's a gap between the two. You know, that will help you build that confidence to increase your desire to get that voice. You need to clearly articulate your value.
Yeah.
Just in go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds to me, Nicole, and I don't know how you'd feel about this, and forgive me for putting you on the spot, as it were, but it sounds to me as though some of the people on this call might well value a kind of a smaller group session, a group of maybe half a dozen or so people coming together. Obviously, there's an element of trust in that. You know, people would have to get to know each other, but a kind of self-help, and that would sync really, really well with the aspirations of the Women in Alliances group, trying to help each other to improve some of these areas. Is that something that you might? Because I know you know you're an extremely expensive coach, and we're not asking you to do things for free or for charity or anything like that. But is that something you might consider?
Yeah. So there's basically two ways that I work with clients. One is dedicated one-on-one coaching. That really is where we really dig in and do a lot of work, get really clear on what the goal it is that you're trying to achieve. But I also do group coaching. So group coaching, and if I may, Mike, if you're interested in group coaching, I'd be willing to look at some group coaching. I do, in order to get the value and for each and every person to maximize, it has to be groups of 10. So whether we do a couple of groups of that, I'm fine with that. However, to provide the greatest value to each person, I would be willing to offer group coaching. So if you're interested, perhaps enter your name in the chat box. And, you know, then we'll do a follow-up, Mike, if that's okay, and we can provide some options for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If you're interested, please do enter your name in the chat box. If you're not sure, or maybe you're one of those people with the low confidence and you don't want to enter your name in the chat box, then by all means contact either me or one of the members of the organizing committee after the meeting. And also don't forget, you'll be getting a magazine after this, a digital magazine after this event, with each of the speakers highlighted. And you'll see in there a section where you can make direct contact with the speakers by saying, I'd like more information about this topic. So that's an option as well. So thank you very much, Nicole. I think I got the sense, and I empathize with you, because I know you could have spoken on that topic for maybe 3 hours and still scratched the surface.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we'll come to our final formal session of the evening, which is Katerina Scoburn. I got chastised when I was talking to the speakers before this, because I said, so Katerina, tell me where you come from so I can share it with all the attendees. And she said, oh, I hate it when people do that. So I'm not going to do that. I won't tell you where Katerina comes from at all. What I will say is that she's found what I think is a very, very, very interesting niche, a very specific niche, which is, how do you present yourself in the right way? You know, we're doing so much now by video conference and by talking over video. And for a large number of you, maybe probably the majority of you, it's about relationship building. It's about making those connections and relationships with partners, with colleagues. How do you do that? How do you come across in a friendly way? And I always smile whenever Katerina's on the call, because I'm always peering very closely about what has she got in the background? How has she got her lighting? How does she manage to smile so much and look so professional at the same time? So anyway, I'll hand it over to Katerina, and she can explain all that. So Katerina, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mike, for that very kind introduction. I might raise you one and say, if you guess where I'm from and don't already know, there's a session in there for you. How about we do that? Is that acceptable? How is everybody after an hour? Thank you for joining us, and thank you for staying with us. Joining on yet another Zoom call is no mean feat at this stage of the game. So I would like to, if I may, absolve you of keeping your video on in case you've not already done that. That is certainly one of the techniques I like to use when managing conversation and managing fatigue on Zoom. So while I talk about more impactful, more efficient, and potentially even more enjoyable conversations on Zoom, perhaps you can just sit back and listen. We'll look at background and setup. We'll look at a little bit of technique, content technique, delivery technique, and even a bit of mindset technique. And we'll look at managing conversation. We'll look at all of these via craft. The craft of remote interacting draws largely on, but not entirely on, television craft. And television craft, TV savvy, was first highlighted in about 1960, because 1960 is when the first debate between two presidential candidates was held. And they were John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. And the debate was memorable. The talking points were all about look and feel. Kennedy did everything right. He appeared in a dark suit on a light background and created contrast, and therefore was very impactful. Nixon appeared in a light suit on a light background and blended in. Kennedy was able to glance directly into the camera with intent and appeared decisive. Nixon's eyes wandered, and he appeared as if he was unsure of what he was talking about. Kennedy wore makeup and was well lit. Nixon didn't wear makeup and was lit in an unfortunate way so that he developed what later became known as the 5 o'clock shadow. Now, gone are the days where the biggest talking point about a presidential debate is the lighting. It certainly was in 1960, and since then, no self-respecting professional politician has appeared on screen without a wall of light in front of them. And that's certainly something we can learn from politicians. Lighting should be from the front. Now that could just mean that you bring a lot of lights from around the house and put them right in front of you behind your camera, or you might buy studio lights, 1 or 2, or you might use a ring. That's very popular these days. But you should never have side lighting or backlighting unless you have a very strong frontal light. We've all been on calls where people have been seated with their back to the window and we could hardly see them. So no backlighting. If you've got a window, face the window. No side lighting, no top lighting preferably, and no bottom lighting. Can appear quite scary. If your lighting's set up well, if you've got your camera at eye level so that you can look at either the camera or you all on the screen, you can establish trust. If I don't see you, it's hard for me to establish trust in what you're saying. If you glance around the screen, it can appear as if you're looking for something to say. We do that when we think. We sometimes gesture as well when we think, or we can do it with intent, like Nicole just did, or like Kamala Harris did when she was in her vice presidential debate with, I'm speaking. Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. So if you're going to use your hands, use them with intent. For that, it's good to create an awareness of how you use your hands first. A lot of people I work with either sit on their hands or weigh them down with their phone so they don't move unless they want their hands to move. I'm speaking. Now, you want to be looking at the camera or other people because the last thing you want to be looking at is yourself. Not even Oscar winners want to look at themselves. Nobody wants to watch themselves. Why would you do that? The camera is so scrutinizing that I think a great part of fatigue these days comes from us being so scrutinized and not being used to it. Now, if we go back to Kamala Harris, one of the reasons that you don't want to be looking at yourself is also because it's not about you. There's a reason it's called giving a talk. You're giving somebody something. And Kamala Harris, in the early days of her rallies, used to remind herself, it's about you, but it's not about you. It's about you in that you're giving content, but it's not about you in that it's not about being liked. It's not about how you're going to be judged. And actually, that's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. When I was starting a television show and I was very comfortable with writing the content, but not at all comfortable with hundreds of thousands of eyes staring back at me on the other side of the lens, a very experienced presenter said to me, you know, this isn't about you at all. You are a cog in the mechanism. Like the light people, like the sound people, like the cameras, you're there to deliver the lines that you've written for yourself according to craft. Learn your craft, do your job. Because there's nothing you can do about people liking you anyway. People make up their minds about you when they first see you based on subconscious pattern recognition. So all you can do is learn your craft, do your job. And that is actually a great part of taking off stage fright, because stage fright is an extreme focus on yourself. And as soon as you take that focus off yourself and onto something else, you'll find it's much easier to go into these situations. There are a bunch of exercises for that. I will give you one to practice with now if you've got the will to do it. And it is all about refocusing, putting focus on something else. So you could, for instance, look at the flowers that I've got next to me, or find a detail where you're sitting and focus on it. Focus on that detail and try to recall it. Close your eyes for a count of 4 and see how well you've recalled that detail. Then open your eyes and try to match the detail. Now, if you practice that often enough, by Pavlovian classical conditioning, you will train your body to do this. As soon as you find a detail to focus on, the body will know, she wants to take the focus off herself and her nerves and put it onto something else. It usually takes about 21 days to develop such a habit. And the more you do it, the more trained your body will be in recognizing what you're asking it to do. Shall we do that again? Shall we look at a detail? See if you can imprint it in your mind. Close your eyes and try to recall it for a count of 4. Open your eyes and see how well you might be able to recall it. That's a bit of mindset management for you. Before I focus on content technique, I'd like to spend a minute or two on background. Mike mentioned backgrounds. I quite like a velvet background. The feedback I get is that the blue can be quite calming. And a velvet background also absorbs light. So what remains lit is the face. And your listeners and you can focus on just the content. If this is the kind of background you're looking for, it's eminently and really easily replicable. This is just upholstery fabric from Amazon with some lighting in front of it, and some flowers never hurt. Content technique, what you're there for. Prepare, structure, and distill your content. We take stories best in as stories. If you're going to have slides, use them as support. Too often I see people starting with slides and then they've got a bunch of potentially dispersed messages that, yes, it makes it easier for them because they can invoke these slides and potentially improvise and speak extemporaneously over them. But if these slides aren't connected into a storyline, if I don't know what destination you are going with me, if I can't tell you what my intent is, what obstacles we're overcoming, and how we're going to do that as 3 key takeaways, then I'm not telling you a story. And if I'm not telling you a story, you'll find it harder to take that away. Our destination could be more enjoyable, more impactful, more efficient Zoom calls. Our obstacle is nobody told us we needed to know craft for this. And yes, we're going to look at our setup, we're going to look at content technique, and we're going to look at delivery technique and a bit of mindset management with managing conversation on top. Structure your content, distill it so it takes the minimum amount of words to convey it, and then use rhetorical devices such as repetition. Even Shakespeare made every point 3 times, and that is because he didn't have a captive audience. People drank and gambled while these plays were being performed, and our attention spans are no better now. So make sure that every point you want taken away is repeated 3 times. Then make sure the content has impactful delivery. That can mean emphasis. That emphasis can come in volume, or it can come via the pause. The pause is the single most impactful speaking vehicle. People who, for example, in panels, pause, come across as more knowledgeable, more intelligent, and even more likable. The pause also eradicates filler words. The ums, the you knows, that's just technique and discipline. Again, like with hands or with eyes, we do that when we think. Hillary Clinton still says, you know, that's her interjection of choice about 10 times a minute. If you replace that with a pause, you won't use interjections. To do that, you need to be confident enough that you can hold the silence without somebody interrupting you. And that's in part practice, in part good conversation management. It's very interesting that Zoom has highlighted the need for conversation management. Not that meetings ever ran well without management before in real life, but in Zoom in particular, we can find ourselves with somebody who's taking up too much time, who maybe out of enthusiasm is slightly too loquacious, or at worst can be a bit of a bully. It is our job, everybody's job, to interrupt, which can be counterintuitive and can appear discourteous, but it's actually discourteous not to do that. Because if you think about it, if other people then don't get to speak because somebody else is taking too much airtime, that's discourteous to them. We can institute a gesture with which we do that, and we might even agree it ahead of time and say, if I do this, I'd like to interrupt, like Kamala Harris did. Or we can just do it in a way that's comprehensible and that we are comfortable is not discourteous. Managing conversation is extremely important if we want to be inclusive. You might have introverts on the call. It's very likely. There's always an introvert in the room, and an introvert needs to prepare. You get best out of us, spoken as an extreme introvert, if we prepare. And the calls will be most efficient. So we need to think about who's going to manage conversation on Zoom, or whether we all will be chipping into managing conversation on Zoom, so that we create an environment where everybody participates equitably. And then if we do all of these things, if we've got light in front of us and not, let's say, from underneath, If we've got camera at eye level, so we can look at the camera or yourselves. If we've learned to make impactful gestures with our hands. If we've lost our self-consciousness and put the focus on what we're giving the audience, we're giving a talk. If we've structured our content in a way that's relevant and that's memorable, and if we're delivering it in a way that hopefully can land well, then maybe we can, by managing conversation, create room for laughter. And laughter is something that we're sorely short of. Research tells us we used to laugh 37 times a day. And we used to do that mostly with other people. We don't really laugh on our own, and we don't laugh as much on Zoom calls. So if we can create space for laughter, we're winning on a call. All the rest is just technique and quite easily absorbed. So this is also about you. And I would like as many questions that might have arisen answered for you, either now, if we still have the time, or you can find me on LinkedIn and shoot those questions at me, and I will be very glad to field them as soon as possible. I think Mike might have had some questions himself.
You know me too well, Katarina.
There we are.
Thank you, Katarina. That was excellent. So the first question that I have, and I'll be entirely selfish and ask my question first, and then I'll get to the questions that the rest of you have raised. But are there any video or Zoom or Teams specific gestures? When you're in a meeting face-to-face, it's easy to pick up on body language that says, I'd like to interrupt at this point, or I think I have something to contribute. It's much harder across video, I find. Do you have any tips and tricks on that?
A gesture, an agreed gesture is always good. You can announce at the beginning of a question session, I know that we're collecting them on chat, but if I didn't, I'd say raise your hand and do that physically, or do it via digital means that enable raising a hand, something that's an agreed language. If you're going to be taking questions, and if you're going to be taking them in a particular format, again, for introverts, it's always good to flag that ahead of time. And I think the group here knew that we would be very open to questions so that they can formulate them so that the right question comes across and you don't necessarily need to ask it and somebody else picks it up. So in short, agree a language, and hands are good for that, obviously. If you want to have a language with just a person on the call, you can obviously chat internally. Just make sure that you communicate. Over communication is the name of the game in this case. Don't under communicate.
Thank you for that. Another question that's come through is, during an online meeting or workshop, if I need to read a script or a set of text during a Zoom call, how or where should I position the text that I can still be looking at the camera?
Yeah, well, definitely not on your screen, because if it's on your screen, the same screen that you're using for the call, that's picking you up as a camera, I'll see you reading. I'll see your eyes like I'm doing now in the comments. I'll see your eyes skimming the lines, and you don't want to be doing that. So you want it somehow next to you. You want it preferably just above the camera or next to the camera. But most importantly, you want to rehearse reading these lines because they don't want to sound read. Katarina, I love the comment about laughter. You are right, and this will be something I will strive to encourage more of going forward. That's read. Or I could also pick up clause by clause and say, Katarina, I love the comment about laughter. You're right. This will be something I'll encourage more of going forward. Now, what we're seeing here, I'm sorry, commenter, that I've picked on you and taken your comment, but it's written quite rightly for the chat. If you want to say it, speak it first before you write it for yourself in a presentation. A spoken word presentation is usually just short clauses at sentences. They're not composite sentences. So if you've got a composite sentence that uses therefore, hitherto, because, as, and such, that's inevitably written language and won't sound right spoken. So yes, it's important where you're positioning your text, but it's also important that you write for the spoken word and that you are reading it as if you had just made it up and are saying which means clause by clause. Did that answer your question?
I think so. You
right.
quite accurately identified some of the questions that were coming through on the chat. Obviously, for me personally, one of the funniest interactions I saw at the beginning of your talk was you mentioned gestures, people using their hands to gesture, and one of our attendees, I won't identify her, but she'll know who it is. She said, "Well, I'm Spanish, so it's very hard not to use my hands because I'm Spanish." And then almost as soon as she said that, somebody else came back and said, "You think you've got it bad? I'm Italian and we're even worse. I mean, we just like to use our hands, you know?" I thought it was fantastic. Right.
When I started television, my commissioning editor said, "If you don't stop, I'm going to literally tie your hands behind you." And I did my first season of television. I can't do it now because I'm not flexible enough, with my hands held behind my back. I am absolutely somebody who uses their hands. I'm comfortable doing this now because I think it kind of speaks to the audience, let's say, but I'm absolutely a hand user, which is why sometimes I'll sit on my hands. Sometimes I'll put my phone on top of them. There are two aspects to this. One is limiting the manifestation, and the other is eliminating the need for it. There's an intensity in hands that we are expressing that's not coming through language. And if we hone our language and our message in a way that we think we're equally impactful without making the point with our hands, as I'm very inclined to, then we're more comfortable not using our hands. Does that sound sensible?
It does. And again, I have to thank you, but also apologize at the same time. I get the sense, just as I did with Nicole, that you could have gone on for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours and still be giving us tips on what we should and shouldn't do. And particularly, I like the way that you were able to demonstrate it visually, demonstrate what you were meaning when you talked about pauses, when you talked about preparation and things. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Katrina, and thank you to all our 3 key speakers. As you've probably gathered by now, if I had a piece of paper with the agenda written on it, I'd have metaphorically screwed it up and thrown it in the bin. We haven't got half an hour left, we've got 10 minutes left, but I felt that each of the speakers were doing such a great job of telling a really entertaining story that I felt they should be given the time they needed to fill that time. As with the other 2 speakers, if you have any interest in the things that Katrina was talking about, then post that in the chat. That will be captured in the recording, so we'll be able to get back to you afterwards. Or you can reach out to her directly on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'll be happy with that. Or indeed, just to re-emphasize, you'll get the magazine and there'll be a link in there. What I'd like to do, just for hopefully 5-ish or so minutes, is get the rest of the organizing committee to introduce themselves. So I don't want to open up the mics of everybody, but it will be really useful, I think, if to the rest of the group, the organizing committee could introduce themselves just for a couple of minutes, explain who they are, explain why they're interested in Women in Alliances, and why they're giving the time for free to this exercise. So why don't we start with my faithful sidekick on this call, who, unbeknown to you all, has been sending me private messages about so-and-so has got a really good question. You should ask this question. So Tina Valland, can you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Tina Valland. I'm currently at a fintech called Encompass. One of the key reasons that I've wanted to be part of this group is alliances and partnerships means different things to different people, and having a collective group where we can share our experiences, learn about how things are being done in different places is really important to me. So, great session today. Thank you for all your participation and the questions, and I look forward to what this brings in the future, especially in this virtual world.
Thank you, Tina. Darren, are you there? Can you introduce yourself?
I am. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody. I'm Darren Edgar. I've been involved with setting this group up with Mike for a few months now. And my background is I've been growing technology and service businesses for many years, using strategic relationships and alliances to do so. And I think it's a place where women have unique value to add, as well as it's a place right now where there's quite a lot of opportunity as technology businesses and other types of industries use strategic alliances and relationships to a greater and greater degree. So I think this group is a unique vehicle to help people build their careers, move forward with their lives, and find really great opportunities. So it was great to see so many people here today.
Thanks, Darren. So maybe we could get the votes from the Swiss contingent. Kathleen, can you introduce yourself? Kathleen Elsig.
Hi, everybody. I'm absolutely overjoyed to be on this call. I joined the group a few months ago in the organizing committee, and I come from the space which is really about shared value partnerships. So I build alliances between business, government, and nonprofit organizations with the goal of driving shared value among these groups. And I've learned so much from everyone in the group over the past few months. It's been invaluable. It's a great group to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Well, we couldn't go more than 2 or 3 people on the organizing committee without asking somebody from Toronto to speak. So Ashley, can you introduce yourself from Toronto?
Hi, everyone. Ashley Gray from Toronto. Very, very snowy day here. Really, really glad to be here. I am a very strong believer in the power of women, and I believe together we can be much stronger than we are apart. Everything that the speakers said today, I really found very interesting and valuable. So thank you so much for being here. And I agree with what everyone else said from the organizing committee. It's an incredible group to join. It's a very empowering group, and we're all here to support each other. So thank you so much for being here today, and I hope to see you again soon.
No problem. Thank you, Ashley. Stephanie, are you still with us from not so sunny London?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to, again, thank the speakers. That was fantastic. And if you saw people not looking direct, Katrina, it was because we were busy chatting, saying how fantastic you guys are, whether it was on LinkedIn or where it was. And I'm always asking everyone's opinion. So yeah, no, it was thrilling to have you join us. Thank you so much. My background is in SaaS sales and also alliances. I'm a fervent fan of Mike and his methodology that he brings to alliances. I find it very, very critical to be able to put some kind of structure around the spinning plates that we're continually working with. In alliances, it's a mad role, one I absolutely love. And I think as well, women are particularly strong at it. And I've seen it again and again and again. And I'm kind of well known for fighting the boys network. I'm not a fan of it, and it's strangling so much of us, quite frankly, who are so strong and have been looked over again and again and again in our careers, just because we weren't certain mates. I'm beginning to think that men just like hanging out with men all the time, and they're not interested in business. So on that, I'm going to be quiet. Sorry about that, Mike. Lovely to have you all again.
Stephanie is what you might call one of our shock troops. You know, she's the first one out of the trenches when there's an argument to be had with a male counterpart. She's up there and straight at them. So I hope you found this meeting. Oh, and Katerina is using the time-honored and valuable principle of, may I say something? Of course you can, Katrina. What would you like to contribute?
Communication by demonstration, amongst other things, but also just say thank you so much, Mike, and all Women in Alliances. I don't think I've ever participated at an event that was so well organized, that every detail was so attended to, that all our needs were met, that we were taken into account as speakers and our various idiosyncrasies. Hats off to you. I wish I had one, but chapeau in any case. Thank you so very much.
That's very kind. Thank you, Katerina. Well, thank you. I mean, how can we possibly top those very gracious comments? I'd just like to finish by making a couple of pleas, if that's possible. If you see in your day-to-day lives women working in the alliance or partnership area, please, please, please feel free to mention the Women in Alliances group. Please point them in the direction of the LinkedIn group so that we can grow the group. Please feel free to invite members yourself. You're able to do that with the LinkedIn group. If you're not sure how to do it, please let me know, and I'll send you a little video that shows you how that works. Look out for the magazine, which should be coming out within 2 or 3 days. If you haven't had it within 2 or 3 days, get back to me and I'll find out why it hasn't reached you. I know Leah from Glissa is desperate to tell you about the Glissa platform, but I'm saving that one, Leah. I'm saving that for our next event, because our next event will be even more ambitious. It will be, as I say, a mini conference. And I'm hoping that if we can twist their arms strongly enough, and if we get the right kind of attendance, we could perhaps persuade the speakers that we've had today to contribute again and to lead some of the discussions in that. The Women in Alliances group is about the membership. So please, please, please give us your feedback. Tell us what you've liked, what you've not liked. It's also about practical help. So think about some of the presentations you're seeing, but also think about some of your practical issues and your challenges. And don't be afraid to post in the group on LinkedIn or to send personal messages to any of the organizing committee. With the magazine, you'll see their contact details. Send them a message that says, wouldn't it be great if we could have a smaller group around this particular issue or that particular issue? Or could we organize a session where we all help each other to do X or do Y or do Z? We're talking about a group that produces results, that elevates in two ways, personal and professional. You've heard a number of presentations today about the things you think about in elevating your own personal progression, your own personal career. At the conference, I'm hoping you'll hear a lot more about the professional side. How do we make you more professional alliance people? How do you get better at it? So with that, can I thank you all for attending. For me personally, it's been a joy to see you all. Thank you. And hopefully we'll see you very soon at the next meeting. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, everyone.